welcome everyone to our fourth Tuesday program. I'm Tom Mercer, president of the Louisville Genealogical Society. I'll be covering my face and sit here comfortably in my lounge chair and tell you that I want to remind those of you who are members that we are having our board meeting this coming month on the 13th to open it up to all members to come in and discuss our current circumstances since we've been informed by our host, the Mormon Church there at Hurstbourne Lane, that they're going to have to repurpose the library that we have there. So we wanted to make sure everyone got a chance to chime in on that about what might be the path we take. And apparently this is happening with other genealogical societies because of the cost involved in maintaining if you have your own particular building and that kind of thing. So we'll be discussing that on the 13th, and I want to invite everyone to attend. It's a good opportunity for you to see how the sausage is made, so to speak, but we definitely will value your input, whether you're on the board or a member of a committee or not. Now, that being said, I want to introduce our host who's going to introduce our guests, and that host is Nancy Robertson. So please take it over, Nancy.
Thanks, Tom. I just want to welcome everybody today. It's exciting to have so many people here with us online for this virtual presentation. We're really excited about hearing what Kaira is going to share with us about the Kentucky room. But first, I have a few announcements of upcoming announcements. A week from today, Kaira has been, I've communicated with her about a month ago. We are going to follow up this presentation with an actual trip down to the Kentucky room. Now, history behind this Fifth Tuesday trip. Our last Fifth Tuesday trip, I believe, was in September of 2019. And then, of course, COVID hit, and we've been hiding in caves since then. And just recently, we have come out, and we are going to start up for 2024, our Fifth Tuesday trip. So what we usually do is any month that has a Fifth Tuesday, we try to pick a repository or a historical building or somewhere to go within an hour or 2 hours drive, and we spend we try to get as many people from our society to do that and join us for a Fifth Tuesday trip. So our first Fifth Tuesday trip for 2024 is going to be a week from today, January 30th, and we are going to go down to the Louisville Free Public Library, the main branch down there, and visit Kaira and the Kentucky room. And so she will expand on what she's going to tell us today. And then if you want to stay longer and research, we welcome you to do that. We're going to meet down there at 11 o'clock, but we're also, in the past, we've also met at the church where we hold our meetings of Latter-day Saint at Hurstbourne and Lynn Station Road at 10:15 if you would like to carpool. I know some people would rather ride with somebody else to go down there. And so we offer that. And I'm looking for drivers. Anybody who would like to meet at the church at 10:15 and be a driver, could you contact me and let me know? And then we can kind of get that organized. I will be there at 10:15. And then anybody else who wants to park their car there at the church parking lot, jump into one of our cars and we'll carpool down to the library. So that's next week on Tuesday, our first Fifth Tuesday of 2024. And then we're going to start the month of February, and we've got some great program and workshops lined up. First of all, our Tuesday, February 6th is our German SIG group. Our German SIG group meets every other month. So we did not meet in January. February is our first meeting of 2024. And we invite anyone who's researching German ancestors to join our SIG group. We meet at 2 o'clock on the first Tuesday of February. That's going to be February 6th. And we don't send out a link. You don't have to register, but what you have to do is go to our website, kylgs.org, go to our the left side and go to LGS events. That will take you to a page that has all our events coming up. And you look for the German SIG group and there'll be a link there. So at 1:45, 1:50 on Tuesday, February 6th, go to our webpage, go to the events page, find the German SIG group, and click on that link, and you'll jump right into our meeting. We usually go 45 minutes to an hour, and we talk about different topics of German research. So we welcome you to join our German SIG. Then our second Tuesday of the month, February 13th, we are going to have Jean Burke join us and her talk, and this is going to be in person at the church. So our second Tuesday that month will be in person. We'll meet at Hurstbourne and Lynn Station at the church there. And Jean Burke's going to talk about Clarksville and Jeffersonville in the past and today, a view from the sidewalk. And as most of you know, Clark County was one of Indiana's original counties. The history goes all the way back to the establishment of Clarksville in 1783. So she's going to walk us through from the past to the present. So really interesting program by Jean Burke on February 13th, in person again. And then a month from today, our fourth Tuesday program on February 27th will be a virtual presentation. You'll have to register by going to our webpage, go over to the events page and find the February 27th workshop. And it's going to be presented by Tamara Hello, and she's going to present Google My Maps. And most genealogists do love their maps. And so she's going to teach us how to create a layered digital map of your family's residences, and then also deal with how you can map those migration patterns throughout a timeline. So I think that will be a really interesting presentation by Tamara, and you'll have to go to our website and register for that, and you'll be sent a Zoom link, much like today's presentation. So that's what's coming up. We also have events for March and April there. Go look at them and see what interests you. Hopefully you'll attend most of those too. I want to remind everybody to keep their microphones muted today and the videos turned off. It just helps our broadband and helps Kaira not get interrupted in her presentation. We will have a Q&A following the session, and you can post any questions during the presentation using the chat, which is down on the bottom of your screen. Click on chat. You can post a question, put a question mark, and then put your question, and then I'll field those for Kaira at the end of her presentation. And you can continue to use the chat to ask questions, because sometimes somebody's question stimulates you to ask another question. So feel free to use that chat during the presentation and at the end when we're doing the Q&A. So let me introduce Kaira to you. Kaira is a supervisor librarian at the Kentucky History Room at the Louisville Free Public Library. She came to Louisville in 2021 by way of the local history and genealogy departments of the Public Library of Cincinnati, Ohio, and the Kenton County Public Library in Covington, Kentucky. She has worked with genealogists and local historians in Kentucky and the Ohio River Valley for over 10 years. Her roots are concentrated in nearby Meade County and Breckinridge County, so she has a vested interest in Kentucky research. So, Kaira, I welcome you and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'd forgotten I'd even written a bio, so a little bit might be redundant here at the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and please let me know if everything looks all right. Okay, so yeah, Kentucky History Room here at I switch between saying Louisville and Louisville. My apologies. Again, I've only lived here since 2021, but this was the city to me when I was growing up in a different part of the state. And I will always remember the little, the radio having the jingle that went, Louisville. So I think it's still acceptable. So my apologies if I offend anyone's sensibilities, but we know the S doesn't exist. So though we do get requests and calls and questions for well-meaning folks trying to get a hold of the Louisville Library in Colorado. So that happens too, but we know that they're a little geographically lost when we hear the S. So yes, I'm a supervisor here at the library. I started at the circulation department, but became supervisor of the staff who do library programs, but also the Kentucky History Room a little over a year ago. So I'm certain that a number of you have worked with either Kelly Dunnigan in the past or Joe Hardesty before that. So if you knew those names or had those folks in your email inbox, Rolodex, what have you, you can send your requests and questions to me in those places because those emails will bounce back now. So let's get started. So greetings from Maine. We just tend to use this spot. We say Maine, and often I have to remind myself, oh, when I say Maine, someone might think I'm putting an E on the end of it. So when you hear me refer to Maine, of course, Kentucky History Room, we're talking about MAIN, the beautiful Carnegie side of the library where we're located. If you look to the right, we are up to that kind of east wing. So hello from here for a little geographic setting when we're all looking at glowing rectangles. We'll give it a little bit of sense of place. But yep, who am I? Genealogists, which I am one. We love to talk about ourselves, who we are, where we came from, where our people came from. But my background, as was mentioned in the bio, I've been doing work with local historians and genealogists for over 10 years. My area of most awareness is not where my family's from. It's Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati. That's where I helped people for quite a long time, working in the archives with rare books, but of course, helping people with Sanborn maps and navigate ancestry, family search, what have you. But it's something that I love and enjoy very much. My educational background, very much the same. I am a librarian, but also a public historian. So we're very into making sure people have access and can find the things they're looking for. And being kind of new to the Kentucky History Room here, and well, even if you're somewhere for 20 years, I definitely don't know everything. I don't even know a quarter of what I don't know, but I will definitely do my hardest to help you find what you're looking for, because every day is a learning experience. I'm always finding out new information from fascinating reference questions. So I might not know it, but we're going to find it out together. Again, genealogy, of course. If anybody has any Meade or Breckinridge County roots, we're probably cousins. We've got some of my personal surnames of interest on there. And also, if you come to visit the Kentucky History Room or email or what have you, I have, I guess you could say, a pretty intense interest in historic cemeteries, historic preservation, maps. As was mentioned earlier, genealogists love maps, and also Ohio River cities, just because that's I've slowly gone more and more toward the Mississippi, it seems, downriver as a professional librarian helping people research, and there's a lot of interchange between places because of that important mode of transportation. So that's me, but even if your interests or relatives fall well within, or well outside of those, I'm always excited to learn more, just as I know everyone else is as well who's interested in this kind of thing. So welcome to KHR, the Kentucky History Room. I'm, again, may say KHR. Librarians, we love abbreviations and sometimes forget that not everyone knows what ILL means, interlibrary loan. But if you hear me say KHR, that's the Kentucky History Room. We're on the second floor of the Carnegie building, and here at 301 York Street. We have the same hours as the rest of the library. So if the library is open, we are open. We always have a member of reference here available. Even if I'm not around, there are other staff who are learning more or invested and interested in helping with reference questions. I'll talk a little bit more about that later too, that there's nothing more exciting than when one of the reference staff come up to me and they're, oh, I found something really cool in the clippings files, or they get excited about it too. So the enthusiasm for local history I love it when it's infectious and people get the bug. It's a lot of fun. But you can visit us online on the library website. There's a couple of different pages that might be of interest. I have those linked below, but you can get to either of those if you're on the main page of the library site. All right, so I'm going to go over 3 main points of what we offer here at KHR: our resources, research assistance, and events. So I'm going to go a little more in depth into these kind of 3 points as we continue. All right, our resources, physical and digital resources. So we have the Kentucky History Room, and within this room, we can kind of break that down into 3 different areas. We have our circulating collection. So those are the items you can check out and take home with you. It's not a huge amount of material, but we have new items that we add all the time. I'll show a little bit of that more too. Of course, our reference collection, which is the bulk of what we have in the physical space. And then there's digital access, which can vary depending upon whether you're at home with your library card, which I hope all of you have one. If you don't, here's my little quick pitch. If you live, work, own property, or go to school in Jefferson County, you are eligible for a free card. If you live in, there's a list of surrounding counties where you're eligible to get a paid card. All of that information is on our website. You can kind of pre-register from home, put all of your information in, and then go to your nearest, most convenient location with your photo ID and pick up a card. And that way you'll be able to access some of these databases from home. Of course, we all miss those of us who never invested in our own Ancestry account, how during hard lockdown, we could all get to Ancestry from home with our library cards. But that is the one resource that is very genealogy heavy that you can't get to remotely anymore. You do have to come and visit us, but you don't have to be here. You can go to a branch, or you can be on the Wi-Fi. You can hop on your phone in the car, jump on the Wi-Fi for the library, and you'll still be able to access the library edition. So we'll talk about these 3 chunks of things too, and try to break it down a bit. So circulating collection, a couple little pictures. We have an area where we display topical things of interest or just new items to the collection. We have books and brews going on right now. If anyone's participating in that, we have library events and pop-ups happening at coffee shops and breweries in the community. And you have a little passport and you go around and encourages reading during this time of year. So one of the staff put together, we don't really have a lot of books on Kentucky coffee or breweries, but there's a lot of history of distilling, so thematically it kind of fits. But people have been picking those up and checking them out, which is nice. And then the other area where we have our books and DVDs that covers the whole range of Dewey, and we also have biographies too. So it's not a huge collection and it's not exhaustive. We do have other Kentucky history items in our regular reference area on the other side of the building, but this is some really good stuff that take a book home and read and kind of take a break from the real genealogy digging. Our reference collection, this is probably what everyone here is a little more interested in knowing about. It's, I would say, more than 3/4 of the space that we take up right now. That's everything from your family histories, your 929s, your 976s for Kentucky history, different counties. I don't know if we have an item or representation for all 120. A goal that I have as someone who's newer supervising the departments to find out if we do have physical books. Of course, we're going to have access to records and some microfilm that will cover all of the counties and records that exist in the different counties. But I don't know if we have actual reference reading material sources for all of those things, which sometimes a small historical society might have created a really wonderful tax list index that's the only way you can get a hold of it. So I would like to know that. That's one of my goals. And of course, we have cemetery books. We have other record indexes. Anything, if you want to check the catalog, take a look through there. You can search by county. You can tell the catalog you only want to find items that are relevant, or not relevant, but they're located here at Maine in the Kentucky History Room, so that you're not ending up with too many results. And then we'll move on. Oh, telephone directories, city directories, very frequently used. Probably one of, if not, I would say one of the most used by far of the collection are the city directories, because genealogists love them, local historians do, paralegals, people trying to prove that their home was multifamily before 1933 or what have you. So we definitely have those. And I'll talk about what we have physical versus what we have digitized that we don't have out on the open shelves in the reading room. We also have periodicals. That's a part of the collection that it seems like no matter what library I'm at, they're forgotten sometimes. And I think it's just a matter of access. I love introducing people to Percy. If you're not familiar with that, jot it down. It's the periodical index that the Allen County Public Library has been working on for a long time that you can get to on their website now. So rather than it just being, oh, wow, that's great. There's a bunch of, periodicals that are bound and sitting on a shelf. How am I supposed to figure out what's inside of those? You can actually use that resource to search by subject to figure out maybe there was something that could be relevant to your research in the New England Heritage and Genealogical Register, if it's not already digitized, of course, or in the Kentucky Explorer magazine. There we have, periodicals from feeder states for all over the Kentucky. On the right-hand side, I had to be a bit self-promoting. Northern Kentucky Heritage Magazine, my colleagues and I wrote the cover article for that a few years back, so I had to throw that in there to be a little self-promoting of the historic Pike Street walking tour that we did. So we definitely have periodicals too. Don't forget about those. And our microform collection. So we have mostly microfilm. We have a little bit of fiche, which it's going to be the Kentucky birth death index card things, which we're all familiar with. And those amended versions are on Family Search, or not Family Search, Ancestry. But we have I'm going to go back a couple ticks. We do have the birth and death registers through 69 for deaths, the births starting in 1911 that are the unamended versions. If you're not familiar with those, they are incredibly important resources, and thank you to the genealogists who helped save them from all disappearing when someone just decided, hey, everybody, we don't really want people to have access to those anymore, I believe in the early 90s. So we have a collection of those, which a goal of mine too is to make sure that we get those maybe, of course, accessible, but not so much out on the open floor. I would like for them to have a little more of an enclosure and be a little more archivally sound than they are at present. They're wonderful books. They're incredible. They're very important, but they're also, people like to pick them up and look at them a lot, and those are irreplaceable. So those are the books on the right, and we've got a collection of those, and they're very, very nice to have. So I'll go back to microform. Sorry about that. We have newspapers. Of course, we have the Courier Journal. And in fact, I think we have the Courier Journal up through November of last year on microfilm right now. We're still getting new copies of that. We do have lots of other historic newspapers. The Courier Journal gets a lot of use. Of course, it still exists. We can get to it digitally, but we also have you can see on the right-hand side just a picture of some of the other newspapers, the Louisville Times, the Public Advertiser, and some of those are very interesting because they go back very early 19th century, and I love looking at the ads for those. The text is really tiny, but they're a little more difficult to navigate just because of the lack of an index, because they aren't digitized, but they absolutely are wonderful resources that let your friends know that we have them, because you're not going to be able to get a database that has access to all of these. We have the Lost Cause Press on microfiche. We have will book indexes for the county. There are easier ways to get a hold of those now, but we also have select series of the Draper manuscripts. Another one of those resources that I like to, if people are interested in knowing more about, pioneer era Kentucky, that we have pieces of it that are relevant to this area. And if you're not familiar with those, go read about them. They're really interesting oral histories that were compiled that the book never happened, but luckily we have the raw material to look at and read and learn those perspectives from those people. And some other resources too. And it's one of those, etc. Let's find out. You can come and visit next week, hopefully, and we'll go pull open the drawers and look at different things. And if you have an objective or a date of something you've looked at in the Courier Journal about your family, but you'd like to maybe see if there's another perspective on it, we can grab another newspaper on microfilm and take a look at it that way. You'll also see in the photograph, we have two stations who are using microfilm, and we've got the readers hooked up to those. You can scan to that. You can make make copies. And it's a little difficult to see, but we've also installed monitors that they're like the longer format that fit what newsprint is shaped a little bit better than the smaller landscape monitors. So you have the option to use either one. We have two other computer stations at the end of this area that are dedicated just to doing local history and genealogy research. So if you come to visit, we should, unless there's a line, of course, have a station open to access our digital resources too, which I'll talk more about here in just a second. And another part of our reference collection, we have our map case. One of our clerks very kindly recently organized and put these in a little easier and more easily navigable order. So we have maps from 19th century, 20th century, military maps. We have this really great real estate atlas where there's aerial photography taken of the city. I think it's from 1970. So you have on one sheet what we would look at today and go, oh, that looks like a Google Earth or a Google satellite picture, and then the drawn map right across from it. So I can look at those all day just to see the different changes and shapes of areas as I'm learning the geography more and more. We have some county maps, flood insurance maps. Later, I'll talk about the fact that we have Sanborn map access for the state of Kentucky through ProQuest. But if you're interested, of course, learning more about the geographic context of where your family was living in Jefferson County, we may have something that would help bring light to that. I just love maps. I can look at them forever. We have our clippings files too. Those are largely career journal clippings that were diligently cut out by librarians for quite a long time. They're organized by subject. In some libraries, they're kind of like vertical files. They don't have as much ephemera in them as a typical vertical file would, but there sometimes is something. I grabbed this, I grabbed a folder at random just for an example, and I believe this was about different immigrant groups was the folder title, and it had this little news about Kentucky that had been slipped in there as well. So cool, but also not archivally sound, as we know the inherent vice of newsprint. But hey, it's kind of been preserved. It's still there. Not the most ideal housing or what have you. So the archivist side is going, ooh, but also public library side is going, well, it's still here. That's good. I'm glad. Because of course, we are a public library. We aren't an archives. So we're not going to have special collections or finding aids and those kinds of materials. But every once in a while, we do find something interesting like this, but it's not cataloged, but it's still there. But they are interesting to look at, just almost in a history of information, finding an organization kind of way of how was this done? How were they, organizing the subject? Are they Library of Congress subject headings, that kind of thing too. But they can sometimes spark your research to send you off in different directions. We have biography files for those too. But again, they are largely career journal. They typically have a stamp on them to say that, but I can't recall coming across too many that weren't from that newspaper specifically. So it is a well-represented newspaper in the collection. We also have our newspaper index cards. Again, Career Journal well represented. These are the closest thing you're going to find in the library today that might remind you of the card catalog from long ago, which I believe we converted from card catalog to a digital catalog. I think one of our longtime staff told me it was the late 80s, so it's been a while. But these were handwritten by the librarians. They go through the newspapers and index the headings of the articles, just as some libraries still do today with their microfilm, if they have the staff and ability to and resources. But these stop around the 80s or so, but you can look them up by subject alphabetically. One of my favorites, because I do love a bit of a true crime fan, and even if someone's not interested in local history and genealogy, if you're like, well, on those shows where they're trying to solve a crime and they go, we must go to the library. Well, guess what? There's all kinds of resources where we can do the exact same thing. So I want for illustration, I guess, I like to grab, I call them now the murder cards. So by subject, there's about 63 of them that date from the 30s on, where the librarian sat there and wrote down all the titles of all the different articles about that. So even someone who's like, oh, history, that's boring. I'm like, well, check this out. This is spicy. Of course, it has an article title, date, page, and column. We can take those and we can go straight to the microfilm, or we could go to the ProQuest database and find that exact article. Sometimes optical character recognition isn't great. But also when it comes to the digital database, something I've learned helping folks with reference questions is that the digital version and the microfilm are not identical. Where the Courier-Journal had the Metro edition or the Kentucky edition, it seems that those editions aren't represented in the digital version. So someone had a request and they happened to mention that it was in a small town across the river in Indiana. And I went, well, I'm not finding this article that they know that they had a copy of at one point. Oh, I wonder if it was just in a different edition. So it would not show up. You could not find it in the digital version, but there it was on the microfilm. So a little pro tip hint for later Courier-Journal that it might be on the microfilm if you're not finding it online. Digital access, which I've kind of bled into a little bit just now. We'll break that down into available only at the library. So that's going to be Ancestry Library Edition, but you can be on the Wi-Fi. And the Kentucky History Research icon, or it's not really a database, I might say that, but I'll explain it a little bit more in depth here in just a minute. But available anywhere with your library card, you can access the Sanborn maps for all of Kentucky, the newspapers that are listed. I'm going to be doing a class on accessing not just the Louisville Defender, but the ProQuest Historic Black Newspapers database. And I have a slide for that toward the end. Also Heritage Quest, kind of like I refer to it as Diet Ancestry. So you can get to a few things. The search functions look similar, but it, of course, is not full robust ancestry. But if you need, to look at the city directory and it's 2:30 in the morning and all you've got is your library card, hey, you might be able to find it. All right, so I just mentioned the Kentucky History Research, I need a good name for it, or I don't know what other people have called it in the past, but other than the green tree icon. So if you're here at the library and you're using one of our computers, you will see this little icon on the desktop. This is Kentucky History Research. There's some good stuff in there, and you do have to be here for it, but we have digitized city directories. That's important to know because when you're here in the reading room, you can go right up to the shelf and grab, I believe it's up through it starts around 1922. You can pick that right up off the shelf, both the suburban and the metro when it was split into those. But before that, the earlier volumes, they are fewer, they're more fragile, and they are not available on the public floor. They're housed elsewhere right now. So we have digital access instead, where you can sit down at the computer, open that up. It's a PDF that's been scanned. So much so that I don't know when they scan them. You can kind of see some of the dates in the screenshot. 2013 for 1832, but whatever they were using, it's kind of like when you're using the microfilm and you see where someone was using a pencil to hold it down to get the good photograph. There's a thumb here and there sometimes. So as someone who's digitized a lot, that makes me go, oh, that's really cute, but also, oh, I wouldn't have done that way, but I'm glad they're there. And that is much better than putting too much use or physical stress on the older volumes, given how far back they go. So if you need a city directory from 1877, hey, guess what? We've got it. You can use the computer to hop right on there and find it. And this collection is bigger and more inclusive than what the city directories are that are available on Ancestry for the city. We also have 1966 and 1967 death records that are sent to us from Frankfurt. I don't know when we'll be getting more right now. That's something that's on my to-do list. I don't know what the schedule was when Kelly was here, but I know it's been a minute since we've had anything new, and they come in small groups, but we do have through 67 right now, and that includes, I think the delays are also there as well. So we can get a little bit past 65 for what Ancestry has. There's also cemetery information, some research guides. I believe my next slide has a few little illustrations of what we have. So a page from the 1838 to 39 city directory, 1966 or 67 death record, the Kentucky Death Index we have through June of 2023. Again, that's all under that green tree icon. And something that I've found very useful, though these 3 cemeteries, I believe they're all 3 that are owned by the city or by Metro or maintained by them. I gave a walking tour of the Portland Cemetery back in October, and I'm probably going to be doing a reprise or doing it again in May. Stay tuned to our calendar for that if you're interested. But there's a database of Portland cemetery burials that's combined information from a couple of different sources. We have a bound book that has 2 separate record collections, I guess you could say, that cover Portland cemetery burials. I know there are also some records evidently somewhere related to the Parks Department that exist, but this database was excellent for helping research some of the burials that were there, even for headstones that didn't have a lot of information. So it had the name of the plot owner, other people who were potential relatives, where they were buried in the same plot. I don't know if I could have had I don't know if I could have done my tour without this. So these 3 resources are really very nice to have and use. And you're not necessarily going to find all this information on Find a Grave, because I don't think anyone sat down and put it all in there, though. And there's always something wonderful happening with Find a Grave. All right. And of course, I have my wish list. These aren't things that we have, but they are things that I would love for us to have. And I don't know if genealogists would like for us to have those too. Maybe they could let the library know. I don't know. It would be wonderful if we had access to Fold 3 and also Find My Past. I'm really glad that I frequently like to let people know, hey, you should also use Family Search. It's really great. We are not a Family Search affiliated library, but it sounds like all of you know where to go to find that at the LDS Research Center. I think this Sons the American Revolution Library is one too. So we don't have access with that, and tried to get that. It didn't work out, but I would love for us to have access to Fold 3 for the military records, and also Find My Past. They're really great resources. So nudge, nudge, hint, hint. If I get the petition signed. So we don't have these, but wouldn't it be cool if we did? Okay, I mentioned earlier too, in an early slide, digital access. You can visit the website to see what else we have in the collection. One of the handout that I provided today is a digital copy of our brochure that shows what's in the collection. It needs to be updated. I was speaking with folks earlier that it has a slightly cringy reference to Kentucky Marriage Index 1973 to 1999 on CD-ROM. So there's definitely a better way of accessing that information now. And plus, none of our computers here run CD-ROM drives anymore. So it is a little bit on the dated side, but the formatting is a little odd, but we should be able to put our hands on everything that is listed in the brochure. I think your picture might be a little different from mine, but essentially the same contents. But you can look some of these things up digitally too by looking at our genealogy and local history page, and then the collection page too. One's going to be a listing of access to digital databases. One's going to show different kinds of resources that we physically have, but never, don't forget to search the catalog too. That's going to be another really good way to find what you're looking for. All right, we talked about resources. So last 2 pieces of the puzzle, research assistance. We are here to help, so please come and visit. So you have a number of different ways you can contact us. You can come, like I said, come and visit. Please do. We always have someone on staff here to help. You can also arrange for the librarian is in appointment, where you get an hour of undivided attention with someone on staff who can help you. I'd be more than happy to if I am available. We have the form on the website. You can call, that will call the Kentucky History Room directly, that 1617 number. You can also, sometimes people still send us something by mail, and we can answer reference questions that way too. One of the things that I wanted to see go when I became the supervisor of KHR was it didn't really seem necessary for us to charge research fees. I definitely know that's in place for some places for a very good reason, especially if they are in archives or special collections, because they may have records that no one else has. and then are inundated with questions, and you only have so many staff. But from where we're more of a portal to finding things, and we're not a repository in quite that way, we don't have a ton of research questions. So we do not charge fees for copies or otherwise. If someone needs something emailed to them, with copyright consideration, we can provide that. It's not a problem at all. So that has gone away. Again, we're open all hours that the rest of the library is. You can send us an email straight to that email address. You can email the question through the form on the site, and we typically try to get back in touch with you within the day. We have other further questions that might help us answer it. It might take a little longer, but you should hear something back from us. Weekends can be a little bit longer. But something I'll also mention that we have that is, sometimes it feels like everybody knows about it and there are lots of requests, but sometimes there are fewer. We do have interlibrary loans. So that is another research assistance element that I'd like to emphasize, that we have that ability to borrow materials from other places. We can't control whether or not it's a reference item, and they're not going to let it go through interlibrary loan, but we can make that request to more than one location if more than one has it. But say there's a Virginia tax list book that you're really interested in, we don't have it and it's not digitized, but you've checked WorldCat and they have it in a couple other locations. Well, we can submit a request and see if anybody's willing to part with it for a short period of time. You can do up to 3 requests per month. That doesn't mean if you have all 3 requests denied that you can't try again. That's fulfilled requests. You can request books and articles. You might do the article way instead of doing a research request if that's the preferred method for another repository. But it's a wonderful resource to use. If I accidentally say ILL, I mean interlibrary loan. Check that out on the website. It's under services and interlibrary loan, and just look for that page with those glasses on it, and our ILL clerk will be happy to help you out with that. And another part, so staff development. This is a part that I think is really important. This is how we make sure that when you come to visit KHR, that whomever is here from the reference staff can help you out with your questions. Not everyone has as much of a burning fascination and excitement about genealogy and local history, which I know, I'm sure everyone's had that problem before. You go to the county clerk's office and they're just not that happy to see you for some reason, which is just terrible because no one's a better advocate for records preservation and access than genealogists. But I'm working with our staff to make sure that all of our reference folks aren't so intimidated by genealogy and local history research reference questions, because some are. None of us know everything about, how to find everything, but all of us are pretty good about figuring out, well, maybe we can find the roadmap. So I've been working with the staff every month to go over different topics, to explore all the different kinds of resources there are that we have here in KHR, or that we might be able to send someone in the direction of. And that has included, when Kelly was still here, she went to the Metro Archives and got a feel for what the research process is like there. And she went to the county clerk, same thing there. And now I need to do that myself too. But it's nice to have a person who can say, well, I'm looking for this particular kind of record. And when they come to the library, well, yeah, we don't have that, but I have been, or my colleague went, and this is what you can expect. Or, oh, we've put a research guide that they had in our green tree icon. This is, a piece of information that might help you gain your footing when you do go there. So again, while we aren't a special collection or archives, we can at least kind of point you in the direction of the place that's like that may have that. So working with staff just to make sure that they can help you. All right, and the third part, events. I love local history and genealogy events, talks, tours. I present them myself. Other staff do too. We're working more to get more folks to come in and present too. And a few things we've done in the recent past. I mentioned the Portland Cemetery tour. I've done historic walking tours of the Central Park area of Old Louisville, Butchertown. My colleague Carissa, who's going to be doing a program called What's in the Kentucky History Room, which hopefully some of you will join me for that next week, but there are other opportunities if you can't make it. She's also been doing presentations and about preserving family memories. So looking at genealogy and family history from the context of memory quilts and preserving recipes and those kinds of less research intensive, but more of the kind of human element of what heritage looks like. And research classes, I've done, get familiar with family search and plan your genealogy research trip. That one was a lot of fun. So these are the kinds of things we have been doing. But then on the other end of that, plans for 2024. So some of these are TBD. Keep an eye on our calendar for events that are related to KHR. Something very exciting that I confirmed today with, her name's Jessica, I think it's Harrington, at KDLA is going to be here in June. I believe it's going to be June the 22nd, if it's a Saturday, to talk about Kentucky court records at KDLA. I am super stoked because I have requested those before from them. And if you haven't, they have such amazing resources when it comes to that. I think I received a packet about that thing. I paid for the copies for sure, but if you haven't been to KDLA's archives, Kentucky Department for Library and Archives' archive, or requested from them, they have criminal cases, civil cases, of course, marriages, etc., for the counties, and I think that's going to be a great program. So keep an eye out on our calendar and our website for more information. I'm going to be doing more walking tours. I'm going to be doing a tour of the Limerick neighborhood called Hit the Bricks in Limerick on March 16th. More details, again, check the library's website or give me a call or email. More research classes too. So some things we have in the calendar for certain for the next 2 months, and things that are farther out we don't have promoted yet, but this is the stuff that we're going to have going on. And the most upcoming events that we have, What's in the Kentucky History Room. Again, my colleague Carissa Miller will be doing that on Wednesday, January 24th, so tomorrow, and also February the 28th at 2 p.m. And in, I think, March and April, those are going to be possibly on, I think, Monday nights. It's going to switch a little bit in time, so the availability covers different times of the day and different days of the week. And then I'm doing researching ProQuest Black newspapers collection, and that includes the Louisville Defender, but also newspapers from all over the country, Chicago, East Coast newspapers. That will be on Monday, February 19th. If you'd like to register for that, you can get in touch with me. My phone number is on there, or again, you can check the library's website. But I think that's everything that I've got. I hope I didn't talk too fast.
Thank you, Kaira. That was wonderful. No, you didn't talk too fast. I think I can out-talk you anytime. And very detailed. I'm really excited. You have really taken the Kentucky History Room up a notch since the last time I've been up there, which has been a while. So
thank you.
Yes, it looks great. And we do have several questions. I'm thrilled because in the past we've not had too many come in, but this is a topic everybody's kind of interested in. So I'll start from Deanna asked right away, do you have any type of records that would have like family records or journals or anything about river travel, let's say from Pennsylvania to Kentucky? I know everybody's interested in that migration route.
So that's more of definitely more of a rare books special collection archive kind of item. So that would be something that I would love for us to have, but we don't really have the means to have in our collection, unless it's something that's been previously published. But if you're looking more for something that is an archival document, I wouldn't expect us to. But we may have something that, again, that might be, if it's been published, we could. I would check the catalog for that for sure.
Okay, good question. Jeannie has asked, can you get a library card if you're out of state? Yeah.
It depends. Some counties in Indiana, yes. Give me just a moment. Let me pull that information up on my other computer. I don't have all the counties memorized. We do, things are a little different here when it comes to how you can get a card.
And I want to let you know, Kaira, that I'm not sure where Jeannie lives, but we also put these presentations on Conference Keeper. So we get people from all over sometimes that
Okay.
have Kentucky ancestry, but might live in Kansas or Nebraska. So I'm not sure where she lives, but good question.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you go to our website and go to how do I get a card, the folks who live, so for Kentucky, the counties are as follows. So if you live, work, own property, or go to school in Jefferson County, you qualify for a free card. If you live in Breckinridge, Bullitt, Carroll, Grayson, Hardin, Henry, LaRue, Marion, Meade, Nelson, Oldham, Shelby, Spencer, Trimble, or Washington, you can get a paid card. I feel like I'm the school closing thing right now. But also for Indiana, if you live in Clark, Crawford, Floyd, Harrison, Jefferson, Scott, or Washington, you can also get the $25 per year paid card. But all that information's on lfpl.org. I hope that helps.
Yes, yes, I know. I've tried to, it's hard when your ancestors are out of state in a separate little county, maybe with a little county library, and you don't have a card to access.
That's why I was glad to get rid of the research fees, because that's something that, they're just not really necessary, and they're another, hindrance to getting to information, but you can't help where your relatives moved from.
Yeah, and a question that just popped up is why is it limited to only certain counties? And I think that goes into the tax base, right? You're a public.
Right, because we're funded, we're part of Louisville Metro government, which is very different from most of the libraries in the state, which have like a different way that they are funded through their taxes. It has to do with that.
Yeah, most libraries I know when I try, if I'm trying to get on one in a county in Virginia, it's free for their tax-based clientele or patrons, but us who live out of state are not putting forth the tax dollars to fund that library. So,
and there are some libraries that you can still get a paid card even if you don't live in a qualified county too. It just depends.
Yes.
It just depends. Yep.
How they set it up, isn't it? Okay. Deanna also asked, how far back do your city directories go?
I believe that 1839 is that earliest date.
1839?
Yes, I will double check that.
Okay.
Oh, no, actually we have an 1832 directory.
All right. Good question there. I didn't know you had such a complete set of city directories, so that's great. That is a fun resource to use. I have a question. I put mine in here because you were talking about periodicals at that time. Are the periodicals listed in your card catalog?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so
they should be. I'd be shocked if they weren't. I'm going to test now, actually.
Okay. Because I know you can use Percy to find those particular articles, but it'd be nice to know right offhand if it's available right down there at the main library.
Absolutely. And if there's any question of that, of course, you can email us. Oh, yes, they are. I just searched for Northern Kentucky Heritage Magazine and it shows right up. So I know periodicals can be tough in catalogs too. It somehow might not have an exhaustive listing of what's sometimes sitting on the shelf. So if it seems like it should be there, but it isn't, when I look at it in the catalog, we'd be more than happy to check the shelf for you.
That's when we call you, right?
Absolutely. Please do.
You talked about a collection and I didn't catch the name. What was the collection called that you stated you wanted to archive? It was birth or deaths, and it was in those, you had a picture of it. They were black. What was the name of that collection?
Oh, the Kentucky Birth and Death Index books.
Okay, so that's all it is birth and death index books.
The black books, people call them sometimes too.
Good. Another question by Donna. This has to deal with newspapers. Do you have the German newspaper Louisville Enziger?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have not utilized that.
Yeah, I know the Filson has it. I'm pretty sure U of L has it, but it'd be interesting to know if you have it.
Let's see. We have, of course, the Courier Journal, the Times, the Public Advertiser, the Daily Journal, the Morning Courier, the Commercial, Leader, Defender, Evening Post, Herald Post, and Kentucky Irish American, and Catholic Advocate. Oh, and the Record. So it doesn't sound like we do.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, how about somebody asked, Jeannie again asked, are the clipping files indexed? And I think you answered that next with those index cards. I don't know. You know,
The index cards correspond better to the microfilm,
Okay.
but I have not found, I had the same question. I have not found an index to the clippings files. That is another to-do list goal. If we don't have one, we certainly need one. But if you can think of a subject and the librarians, and there must be one somewhere, I just haven't found it.
Yeah.
We're very good about saying, see also another category. So I was looking again, like, ooh, we have murder cards. Do we have a murder folder? It said, you know, it had that listed, but it had see also crimes. So we should have an index, and it needs to be in the green tree icon, but very good question, because I had the same one.
Okay. And somebody just popped in here since John Weider asked, are there newspaper indexes at your branch libraries, or is the only way we can access your newspapers is at the main branch?
So for the cards, those cards they're kind of limited because they just go 30s through the 1980s as far as an index goes. But digital access for the Courier Journal and other like non-full text newspapers, you can get to those, at any location or with your card from home. But there isn't like a special, like, I wish there were an index to the other newspapers, but it's just kind of hunt and find and scan. But yeah, I wish the Times had an index. That would be lovely.
Yes, yes. And then Tom Mercer, our president, he just gives you a little plug here. He said, on a previous Fifth Tuesday trip, which we made, has to be several years ago, he found the book History of Muhlenberg County, and it verified for him a family legend about a duel that occurred with his family. So that's what you can find out coming down to your collections there.
I love those juicy stories. I love to say you want rascals in your family because they're the ones who leave the records. That's great. I love that.
True. That's true. Amelia asked, and I think this question is confusing with two different databases, but let me throw it at you. Is Heritage Quest the same as the personal subscription? And I think she's confusing it with MyHeritage, which is a subscription.
Yeah, those are, I've never even known of anyone to have a Heritage Quest personal subscription, and it's by Ancestry. It's just kind of a really, really pared down one, but those are definitely two different resources.
Yeah, years ago, I used to teach Heritage Quest, off their library card, because I would teach out at St. Matthew's, and Heritage Quest would access a lot of records that Ancestry had, but they didn't have to pay. It was free through the public library. So yeah, Heritage Quest is owned now by Ancestry, right?
Yeah, it is. And I kind of miss their old scans that they had, because sometimes those bitonal ones would find things that the Ancestry ones didn't, or it just had a different little knack to it, like about a decade ago. But yeah, it says by Ancestry. The search looks exactly the same. They use the same images too, but it's good to have in a pinch.
At one time, they had a bigger digital collection of of city directories than Ancestry. If I couldn't find it on Ancestry, I'd go to Heritage Quest, but I don't know where that's at now. Interesting. Let's see, what else do we have here for questions? Oh, one thing, it's like, we will have to access your website more and put your genealogy classes that you're offering in our newsletter so our patrons know about it. I'd love to share. We used to teach, down at Bon Air and St. Matthew's, but now you're doing so many genealogy classes. It'd be nice.
We would still love to have folks come and teach things if you have a knack or an interest. Oh no, that means I have more time to do more tours.
Yeah. I also want to remind everybody the brochure that you gave us is they can download it off of the chat right now if they haven't downloaded that brochure that contains all the collections that you have. Yeah, the murder cards, I was writing those down. You're not affiliated with Family Search, which just surprises me, but keep trying, Kaira.
Thank you. I've tried that here, and I tried that at my last library and didn't work. We were an affiliate at Kenton County even back when they were still doing the film, where you could borrow the film, which was a challenge sometimes, but such a cool resource. And it was so nice to not have that little image pop up where it's like, you got to go to a family history center or an affiliate library. But I know where to send people at least when that does happen. So yeah.
And Carol Whitledge, these are comments here that have just been put up kind of since we started Q&A. She put a previous speaker we have had from the Kenton County Library, which you probably know, talked about a photo archive program that seemed to involve the community and promoted the library as well as ancestry research, faces and places.
Yep.
Can you imagine a similar program here in Louisville?
I would love that. Faces and Places is incredible. If you have Northern Kentucky roots, you are in for a treat because Kenton County Public Library has an archives. They have special collections. They have hundreds of thousands of digitized images. They have this the Kentucky Post photograph collection, which is still being digitized to this day. And I think it's kentonlibrary.org/genphotos, if I can plug that. You can even find Louisville area photographs in it too, because the newspaper picked up things and covered things from all over. We don't have the capacity for that, and no one's offered us any enormous photograph collections. I know U of L just had the Courier Journal give them like $1 million or something like that. But something I would like for us to do when we have the capacity and ability, I would like to do something that I worked on also to an extent in Cincinnati, was to work with the public to see, well, you have a family photo album in your, don't put them in the attic. That's not good for it archivally. And you want to scan these images and make them available to other researchers. We do have a small amount of items on the Kentucky Digital Library. We're working on so many other things right now with Maine's going to be renovated in the next few years too. But so digitizing it, that's I love that. It's one of my babies. I adore scanning things. So it's something that's definitely on my radar. There's nothing in the immediate future, but that doesn't mean that's not going to happen and that's not an ambition, because got to get stuff out of the closets and out of the trunks and scanned and shared and more accessible. I'm all about accessibility.
So you certainly are imagining it, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. Victoria, she asked, and I think this is a newspaper, she wanted to know if they had the Jeffersonian, but I don't think you listed it when you read off that list.
I don't believe so. And I don't know if that's a newer or an older publication. When it comes to newspapers, especially the smaller ones, I always tell everyone to check the Library of Congress's Chronicling America website. If it's an older one, they've digitized a ton of historic Kentucky newspapers. I managed to bust down a brick wall because they had scanned a bunch of the Breckinridge County ones. But if they don't have it digitized, they also have the newspapers index. That project is like 35-ish years old, so it might not be current for holdings, but it will tell you who does have that newspaper potentially. So try them. Yeah, look for Chronicling America, and it's this little purple button on the right-hand side of the page that has a listing of at the time extant newspapers in different repositories.
Excellent. And then the last question, which is really relevant for a week from now, what are the best options for parking near the main library?
Well, I am blessed that I live in Old Louisville and I get to walk to work, and it's but we do have a few options. It's mostly paid parking that's kind of like contiguous to Maine. There is a parking lot right across from the 301 York Street entrance. There are parking meters. It's limited to, I think, a couple of hours. But if you want more bang for your buck, I would suggest there's another parking lot just south of there. There's like a little black pharmacy building. If you pay $1.50, I think it's the whole day. If you don't mind a short walk, let's see, 2nd Street between Kentucky, I think north of Kentucky has free parking. But bring some quarters, and if you don't have any, we can make some for you at the circulation desk.
Okay, good reason to carpool too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Good for the wallet and environment.
Yeah, okay. Of course, I have one more question that just popped in here from our Betty Darnell, ancestorhunt.com has a nice list of digital newspapers, free and paid subscriptions. Well, thanks, Betty. There's a
Oh,
little
cool. What was the name of that
additional-
again?
Ancestor Hunt.
That's new to me.
H-U-N-T,
Cool.
ancestorhunt.com. So there's a great resource we can tap into. Yeah, newspapers. It's a hunt just to find the newspaper. Might as well look for the article you want to find, but it's part of the hunt, isn't it?
It is.
Well, Kaira, thank you so much. You have done a great job. I love
Oh,
your
thank you.
enthusiasm. You've got us all fired up to come down to the main branch here and research. I want to thank all our participants who joined us today. Thank you for, registering and coming to listen to Kaira and all this information on the Kentucky History Room. Don't forget, next Tuesday, we're going to meet down there at 11 o'clock or meet in the parking lot at the church at 10:15 and we'll carpool down. And then check our website for those upcoming events and check the Louisville Free Public Library website for their upcoming genealogy events. So with that, Carol, we're going to say thank you again, and maybe we'll get you to join in again and tell us anything new that's happened in 2025 here in another year. So
I would love to. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to meet some of you not as little rectangles very soon.
yeah. Yes, not on screen format profile. So everybody's kind of saying great program, thanks. And again, thank you, Kara from LGS, and thank all our members and even our guests who showed up today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.